Hi everybody, Jamie here. We don't normally do an introduction pre-podcast, but for a few reasons, it's a good idea for this one. We have created football guys come in, and these are guys who speak genuinely and passionately about their football projects, and now they're helping people who may be struggling with mental health. However, listening back, I think as a host, perhaps I didn't have my A game. Maybe social isolation is starting to have an impact on me. So I just wanted to explain a few things. So firstly, we decided to split this podcast into two, as it's one of our longest, and because the guys had so much great stuff to talk about, and we could have probably had another hour to really go into a lot more detail, and we may do another one in the future. But just for your awareness, though, there's going to be a two-part podcast. The first part covers what creative football is, its key principles, and how it helps people. And then part two is where we talk about what makes it work, how it's starting to influence organisations and others, and also hear what the guys are doing to help people during COVID. We also noticed, and the eagle-eared among you will also, is that at the end we didn't return to our success factors as usual to review them. So we will leave that up to you to decide whether we achieve them or not. One quick point, at about the 8-minute mark, I make a rambling sentence that is interminable and seems to last forever. So apologies for that. Please don't turn off during it, because then there's some really great content from the guys after that. But the main bit I wanted to do in this is I didn't necessarily give the guys the best setup to be able to explain the structure of creative football and what each element does. So I wanted to do that now quickly, just because it helps give context to what you're about to hear. So creative football is a name that's given to three distinct but linked projects, which are Social Inclusion Football League, Blokes United and Girls United. And all of those have the same ethos that you'll hear the guys talk about. And ultimately, they're all there to help people struggling with mental health problems to connect through football, but in turn offer a much needed social network, a place where you can get help if you need it, and a place to have some fun whilst being active. So Social Inclusion Football League is the one that's there for people who are accessing mental health services or need to access services, providing great support for people transitioning in and out of them, and brings together professionals and service users on a level playing field to play football together, but to really strengthen relationships. And then Blokes and Girls United is more of an out-of-hours offer for people who aren't necessarily in services, and maybe people with jobs or have families, but could still be struggling with their mental health through things like social isolation or substance misuse. And ultimately what they are is an informal game of football for like-minded people who probably understand what it's like to struggle sometimes, and it's a great place to make some friends and connections and have a laugh. I went down to one of them, and it was a great laugh. I met some fab people who really made me feel welcome. If you want any more info on any of these, by the way, you can check out the Facebook and Twitter page as well. And what's great about those three separate projects is they're all blended together. So people who are part of the Social Inclusion Football League can still go and participate in Blokes United or Girls United and vice versa. And that's a real strength of the model that you'll hear the guys explain about in the podcast. A few small bits to touch on, which we don't do in the current podcast, is they've got a really sustainable model. You know, they ask people to chuck a little bit of cash in at the start of each session, but if you can't, you don't have to, so don't worry about it. They find partners in local communities, such as pubs and local businesses, who can help them out with things like equipment or even providing soft drinks at a pub where people can meet afterwards and get some laughs. And ultimately, it's about real people, because these guys are real people who've been through mental health challenges themselves and still are to some degree. So they really understand how you can help people in a range of ways through a shared enjoyment of kicking a football around. So that's enough from me. I hope you enjoy the show, and remember to then look out for part 2. Cheerio. Hello there, and welcome to TaAF Talks, the show that's all about influencing positive change and doing things differently. My name is Jamie Waugh from Together an Active Future, and with me is my friend. He's vivacious, he's bodacious, he looks so old, he's practically Cretaceous. It's Mr. Ken Massey. How you doing, Ken?
Very well, thank you. I don't know where these introductions come from. It's absolute nonsense.
My big long list I've created. So what I do with my nights.
Sounds like you need to get out a bit more. So, welcome everyone to our podcast today, and I'm really looking forward to this episode. At the start of the coronavirus outbreak, the focus and attention was on protecting people's physical health, quite rightly. But I think as the restrictions on people's ability to see friends and family and to meet up and things, take part in activities, has gone on, we're seeing that that's having a really big impact on people's sense of happiness and well-being. And in today's podcast, we're meeting with a group of chaps who really understand the reality of the situation and on both sides of the coin, and hopefully they'll share their experiences and thoughts and ideas that can help others. So, I'd like to welcome and very happily welcome Paul and Wayne and Paul, who are the key players in what they call the Creative Football Project, or Creative Football. So welcome chaps, and glad that you're here on the podcast with us.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Good to meet you both.
Yes. So we'll go with the Paul H for, I was about to describe you then. So Paul D has the glasses. That's the most polite way of describing the differences between the two.
I've got a better difference. I've got a better football top than that. Shit.
Oh, well, we don't want any of our listeners switching off on one half of the other thing. We'll leave that one. And I've met you guys on quite a few occasions now, and mine and Ken's ability to manage the three of you through any kind of time or structure in this podcast is going to be limited. So let's see how we go. So what we always like to start with is to understand what you guys would like to get out of this podcast. So maybe ask you, it's up to you if you can do one each, or you can do a kind of one between you all. But what would you guys like to get from this podcast?
I'm gonna jot these things down here as well.
I think really just to kind of let people know that what we do is very easily accessible, very informal, and that we're very approachable, I guess. Wayne?
Thanks, Paul. No, for me, it's more than the football. There's a lot more going on behind the football, as for different strokes for different folks as such. The wide range or spectrum or participants that's coming, but there's what people sometimes just get it mulled up with is the football. It's the support and the partnerships that's been created, and so much more moving forward, education, training, stuff like that, or just something for someone to do and meeting people. So there's so much more, and that's what I'd like to get out today, get across there, that what maybe people aren't seeing, the hard work that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, pretty similar to Wayne, just an understanding of what creative football is, and what it implies and what we do, and what people can get out of it by maybe attending one of our many sessions.
Fab. So I think Ken's captured them. We'll revisit it at the end and make sure that we've kind of nailed that for you guys. And I think actually what we're going to talk about in this first section is probably going to allow you to kind of get that across quite a bit. So I think if it's okay, I'll ask one of you to maybe give us a short summary of what creative football is, because I know that's a bit of an umbrella term for a few different types of things. And then we'll touch more specifically about a couple of the kind of projects that sit within that, if that's okay. So over to you guys, and maybe just give us a short summary of how you would describe creative football to somebody else.
I think, Jamie, creative football is the umbrella term for a variety of projects that originally stemmed from kind of looking at providing support in a different way to traditional services. We kind of found out early on that people were reluctant to access support. And we include ourselves in that, on our own journeys. We've all, at some point or other, found it really difficult to kind of ask for help. And when you do get help, it's not the right sort of help. It's not relevant to yourself. So originally it just started off as a very small football group in 2009. And then from that, we've kind of developed it to bigger groups, to a football league, and then obviously into Blokes United, Girls United. So originally it was aimed at people that were already accessing services or needed to access services. And now alongside that, we've kind of got these projects that kind of provide out of hours support for people that work, for people that have families, maybe people that have had relationship breakdowns or bereavement.
Okay, we're just going to just pause it for a second. You just froze for a second there. I think
right.
You're back now. The last point you made was you were starting to provide more out of hours stuff, people who might have been through relationship breakdowns. I think that's where we'd kind of just lost you.
Yeah. I think what we've tried to do is you always have to. I always think that you have to put yourself in someone else's position to know what it is that they need and want. You can't just force things onto people and assume that's what they want and need. So everything we do is how we felt at times, in the past, and that's probably the way we do things, isn't it?
Yeah. Just to add, it's inclusion as well, isn't it? So it's for everyone.
And I think we'll come on to a couple of specific projects and maybe some of what makes that work. But I think a couple of things that you touched on there, Paul, I think the ability to put yourself in somebody else's position. Now, I think it's fair to say, as you said, that you guys have been on your own kind of journey with regards to kind of mental well-being and where you've been at various places. So, and I'm not sure if all of you, and I know a couple of you definitely have kind of interacted with services. So have known how that's felt and maybe what that hasn't done for you at that time. You probably was the thing that you needed the most. So I think your ability to kind of look at that together and say, actually, what is it that wasn't working about that thing that we think is probably something we could apply to others, that we could maybe start to look at providing ourselves, that could help those people who maybe services aren't quite, for various reasons, services aren't quite getting it right for. So I think something about having your own personal journey at the start of this, I think, gives you guys, puts you in the best position possible to start to work out what this could be and would look like. But I think one thing that's necessarily the case, though, is I think there is more that, I work in the NHS and kind of other kind of public sector services. You don't necessarily need to have been through some of this stuff as well, just to have put a bit more thought into what must this feel like for this person. I don't think you necessarily, for somebody like myself, I don't need to necessarily really, really struggle with mental well-being problems in the past to recognise that it could be made a lot easier for people, and that by having criteria and exclusion, that's obviously not kind of an ideal thing for people. And that by speaking in a language that's hard to understand maybe isn't that kind of welcoming. And that maybe just by being me, a real person, that's probably a really key way of wanting people, people wanting to get involved in that. And I think knowing you guys, I think your own personalities and all that human aspect of what you do, to me, has always felt like one of the absolute key fundamentals to all of it.
Yeah, agreed.
So if it's okay, I think, and correct, you can tell me if it's not okay, and then talk about it in a different way if you want to. I think because I know more around the kind of the Blokes United and the Girls United kind of element, and knowing that relates to the thing you talked about, Paul, is that wasn't necessarily about people who were already in services maybe being identified, and therefore that gives its own challenges. If it's all right, I thought we can maybe explore that more in this next bit, and then talk about what it is about the approach that you guys have had with Blokes United and Girls United that you think works for people in a way that other things haven't worked for them before. Because I think there's an awful lot of learning a lot of other people could take on board with what you guys have done.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jamie. But I also think there's something else missing in there as well. What I think before we move on to that, obviously being in services for many a year, there's such a big divide from being in services, whether you want to not be in services, you want to be out of services, especially whether it's long term, short term, rehab, whatever, and whether or not you want to be there, you want to be them people, you want to be them staff. But when you come out, all that's gone. That's when you realise when you're out, hold on a second, I was actually around people for company. Might have been someone to give a bit of motivation and stuff. That goes, and the revolving door aspect comes back in there because all of a sudden that person's on their own. So again, yeah, the Blokes United, the Girls United, but the people in the Social Inclusion League and stuff like that, it's them setting things up, because when you're coming out of services, for that revolving door to stop, the only thing you should be doing is like moving house. Everything else, your job's already there, your friendships are already there, your activities are already there, there might be some training courses on offer, so that's something else that's offered. And personally, that's what probably made it, for me, the best time it's ever been, because I've now just been in a flat, and it might not seem a long time to many people, that's the longest accommodation I've ever had. There's so many things, because it's either been from all to nothing. It's all, and obviously bridge the gap, you see, and that's what's missing in services, because obviously, recovery and stuff like that, linking in with all these services until they're coming on their own and stuff like that, they're building up the friendships, which is most important, do you know what I mean? And all these other things then can come and again, it's asking the people what they want, because this isn't ours, this is a community's, and I think that's the beauty of it for me, because we're always getting ideas from it. Could we maybe do this? Could we try this? And it's trying to support that person. That's just going back to what Paul said at the very beginning, the traditional things. Let's all sit around the table. No one knows each other. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. They're the most time. They're the things that you don't want to go to. You might go to once and never go back to again, and you've lost that person. I spent the majority of my life going to my one-to-one meetings outside and lying, because I didn't know them well enough. Just go, everything's great. Because I think if I tell them how I feel, they're going to go, go back there then. Do you know what I mean? I'm struggling. But having that, all them things to come out to, and then one thing or two things or three things, or as much as people want to get out of it, it's all there. And that's what we've seen over the growth, because we was participants. Do you know what I mean? And that's all of us. We still use it for ourselves.
I think as well, to be fair, Jamie, obviously, we're employed by Creative Support. That's the organisation. And we are able to kind of take positive risk taking. We have a kind of, the kind of people that we work for trust us, give us this kind of autonomy to kind of go with our gut feelings, try things out. It doesn't always work, but we never stop trying, never stop looking at new ways, and to kind of have that. We are lucky in that we have that kind of freedom to do that. We're not bogged down by endless policies and procedures. It is just pure grassroots, old-fashioned, if you like, social work. And that gives us the ability to do what we're doing.
I think there's some really interesting points that have come out there, just to touch on. Just to highlight for me, just in these first few minutes, brilliant stuff. I think there's a really important point here about that transition between in and out of service, and the importance of the infrastructure and the various different connections that people might need into different elements of friendship groups and sociality and support that's needed to make that transition stick, if you like, and for them to be able to move past. And that was really. That really stuck out to me. And I love the phrase as well. You said that it isn't ours. And this real sense of being owned by the community. And I just wanted to explore a bit more, I suppose, in terms of, could you just give me a flavour of what the Blokes United programme is, and kind of what it does for people that sort of fills some of those gaps that you've mentioned so far? what are the kind of nuts and bolts of what it's like as a program?
Yeah, it's out of hours, as in it's not 9 till 5. Personally, it's about prevention as well. I worked for many years. Just a bit about me, not where it come from, but an example. I worked for many years. Stopped playing football for 7 years. Obviously, I got into creative support because I'd done counselling. I'd done everything. Nothing had worked. It took me a few months to get my confidence up, and I ended up joining the league with creative support, creative football, and then. We all together, we just thought there's nothing outside. I just thought if I'd have had something when I was working, maybe like this, that was accessible for everyone, it might never have got to the stage that I got to. That was one of the reasons as well, prevention. Obviously, it's a good mix of everyone, as in people with mental health come, people that don't. We also have, obviously, we go back to the Butler's Arms and stuff, and we have a chat and discussion. But we never force anything on anyone. We never ask them questions. Maybe just, how are you? But we actually mean it when we ask them. And we just find that people just, because we're so open about our stories, that people in their own time, if it's a week, 6 months, they will talk. It also gives for me personally, it gives a lot of routine. As you go into these sessions, it gives you a lot of self-esteem, confidence. We've seen people with weight loss. It's just, I think routine's the big one, and confidence for me.
What I'm mindful of, I think, and we'll come back to those points, I think, Paul, as we get into it. I think I'm not sure I've helped us kind of explain the slight differences between the two things. So I think if it's okay, I'll just kind of count on my. So I think social inclusion football, you can correct me where I'm wrong here, is the bit that you started talking about there first, way, and we quite rightly said, don't just jump to the next one, Jamie, because actually, for people in services, the Social Inclusion Football League provided that much needed kind of support from the transition of services to nothing. And that Social Inclusion Football League exists to help with that transition through the medium of football, but not just being about football, being about that social connection, being about those touch points, being about not feeling like, as you said, I was surrounded by people and now I'm home on my own, and that's scary and freaking me out. So the Social Inclusion Football League is almost that bridge for people who've been in services or maybe kind of going in between services a little bit. And yourself, Wayne, and Paul were kind of part of that as service users. I'm not sure there's a better term than that, so please do challenge me if it's not a nice and the right term. And then from that, I think it was when you guys, the three of you, and probably more people, started saying, but what if we could do something for those people who aren't necessarily in services already, that isn't constrained by a service that has to run in certain hours of the day, because that's the kind of nature of services. And actually, it was from that you guys then developed the ideas for Blokes United and ultimately Girls United, which was a more inclusive offer, but still using football to connect people and create social connections, create support, and have those kind of chats. Is that a fair summary? Because I was just mindful we didn't have the context maybe before we went on.
Yeah. Well, the Blokes United concept we spoke about before, Jamie, was actually started in Hull by a friend of ours, ex-professional football player, Jamie Barnwell, Edinburgh, top guy. He come across and see us and was talking about it. And that's sort of where the idea sort of started, this baby over there. And just that's that out of hours. But what we say in there is it works both ways, because some of them guys that are in that social inclusion league or the social inclusion sessions that are going on during the week as well, some of them guys are then through training or through confidence could get into work, but then that at the end of it, the 9 to 5, then we can signpost them into the Blokes United. So again, they still have people around them. And then at the Blokes United, there might be people that need more services, they might have lost a job, so then they can come down to the Social Inclusion League, again, get involved in the Social Inclusion League, which I know, Paul, over the years, some of the teams that are down there and the organisations, it's sort of, I'll just say it's small, and Paul can probably talk more about the services down there. You can easily say what? I know, what you're teaming up for, but the services down there, it sort of covers just about every aspect of the partnerships. So supported living might be a team from supported living there, so it might be an organisation. So you're actually meeting them people, you're playing on the same pitch as them people. Them badges are gone.
Yeah.
And what we felt in more over the years, this is different, the name badges. You know what I mean? Because that is us and you. And we've tried to get so many, there's so many services there where the person that's coming down with them, whether you want to call them support workers, whatever, for us it's just a footy player. Do you know what I mean? But that Dave is actually working there. That John's actually working there. Do you know what I mean? And we get talking, we can introduce and stuff like that. And that the football is the icebreaker. The rest comes on top of that. And maybe over to Paul. No problem.
Well, yeah, it's very holistic in that sense. In that, if you've got a team from a hospital, for example, they will be meeting teams, like Wayne said, from supported living projects. So, that's their link into the community straight away. It kind of covers the whole spectrum. So, and like Wayne's saying, all the staff that support these teams will put on a pair of shorts and a pair of boots and play. How many times do people get that relationship with the worker where they are on a level playing field? It's massive. It's absolutely massive.
You see, just to say, if someone's coming out of one of them places, they might have a substance misuse. We've got people there working substance misuse and stuff like that, and you've met, because they're the hardest things to go to in the world. Do you know what I mean? When you all of a sudden you get out that you've got to go to this place, you've got to go to this place, there's support, you've got to go, or you might get dropped off. It's daunting. You're being judged. You're not going, are you? Come on, let's be honest. You might go the odd time and talk about, we spoke a few times, Jamie, about the people in social life. How do we get to them? Well, not that way, because that's the thing. If it's more a different approach, and that's where we try and look at everything really about going back to. And I know you said, Jamie, about you have to go through them things to feel that. We can all get anxious about going somewhere for the first time, going for a job. And these feelings, how do we feel going to the session for the first time? And I think what we offer, because we're all individuals as well. So as a team, it sort of covers most things, and having a talk about, and a lot of things now, I said it's not ours, it's everybody's, and the people that have come to the forefront, or you've seen the journeys they've been on, and now they're automatically helping the next person or meeting that person to go there with them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's, sometimes it's just over an hour session, sometimes seeing someone's face change within that hour by the end of the session.
I think it educates people as well, gives them an understanding of, quite a few people are judgmental, aren't they? So, I just think it gives a real good understanding to maybe everyone's life.
I think judgmental and potentially also a little bit ignorant.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in like a really crude way, just as in had no experience of interacting in that kind of way. And I think I'm really glad that you guys have pulled me back to trying to talk about the bigger picture of the whole creative football, actually, because you see this as soon as you start describing it. You can see the strength of every bit of that all working together and actually doing something that often services and organisations struggle to do, which is most of them look after a person up until that point and then I hand them over and then I'm done. But that person needed the relationship with you to carry on because it was you they had built a trust with or an understanding with. And I think the bit that you said, Wayne, it's badges off, and then you said, Paul, I don't know if you meant to do the pun, but it's a level playing field, it is perfect, isn't it? Because when I came to meet you guys for the first time, I think you said to me, Wayne, you look out on that pitch, you've no idea who's a service user, you've no idea who's the professional who works in mental health services. And that was an awesome thing to kind of see and understand. And like you say, you could almost treat that as this could be our meeting. Instead of meeting to talk about something, come down and become a football team, hospital trust, or whatever it would be. And just totally change the dynamics and even what might feel like the power balance. Yeah. Professionals probably always assume, or even whether it's meant to or not, there's a perceived power balance in that, isn't there? I'm a professional, I'm the person who knows, therefore I'm going to dictate, as opposed to, no, remove all of that. Let's play a game of footy to it, but let's sweat together, let's crunch each other with some tackles. And at the end of that, maybe I've got rid of some of my assumptions that I made, or maybe I've dropped some of those kind of professional guards that I put up. And I'm probably in a better place to relate to you as a human being now than I was before.
Yeah, and I think that just relates to what Paul said, because again, the other way, obviously, you've got lads coming down who, no respect to anybody, who are playing a standard of football as well, can play standard, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm not passing to him, it's rubbish, going back to that schoolyard type of thing, getting picked last.
Yeah.
We're not there to judge anybody. We don't do it that way. We don't do that. And then we were just talking about a guy the other week, just really quickly, the guy come down so angry, do you know what I mean? Tag, do you know what I mean? And at first it's like, rah. And a year later, seeing how he is passing the ball with people, hugging people and stuff like that, when now is helping that person that was him coming through that and going, we're not the enemy. Do you know what I mean? Hey, big, come get your energy out, listen, but we're not going to judge you. And going back to that bads thing, it's like it's saying something in all the years we've not had a fight, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People have got emotions, you work with that, don't you? And there's consequences in life, but I just think there's so much magic taking all that off, because one of the biggest things, again, that badge. Imagine you're somewhere, your support work is where you go into the shops. Someone's got a badge on. That badge can say so many things to so many different people. Just having a badge is, oh, they're not my mate. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the look, I've got a badge on. Oh, do you know what I mean? And saying that under perceptions, and going back to what Paul was saying, it works the other way. People's understanding of, all right, mental health, that word mental, because we all expect, because of the media, they're going to stab you. That's it, and understand it. And going back to the 1 in 4, it's everybody. We can all struggle. You know what I mean? That's everybody. And I think them things there, it takes time. We're all different. It might take a week, a month, a year, or it might be a family member that then they know they've got that trust with us guys and the group to go, I need some help. Because Paul's saying, when mean it, we is a British phrase, and I say this all the time. How you doing, mate? That's hiya. Because most people, if you go, how you doing, mate? Not too good. Well, not meant to say that. Do you know what I mean?
Response.
No, gutted. Do you know what I mean? Mean it. And I think that's the beauty of it all. Yeah, it's
like going back to the session. If you turned up 10 minutes into the session and seen us playing, you wouldn't know who's running it. There's no bosses. One of us might give the bibs, I'll do the teams, obviously. But when you're on the pitch, you wouldn't be able to tell who runs the sessions.
No, I think, Ken, if we'll carry on chatting, but if you could just show maybe a clip of a bit of a kick around. I think this is a specific example with Blokes United, but I think you could replace it for any of the creative football stuff. And we'll just
it's a great football session, that.
This is the one.
And I think what this shows is what you've just been saying there, Paul, is firstly, you wouldn't know who's who in this. And somebody might give out the bibs, but that's fine, because somebody needs to give out the bibs. And maybe that reduces the anxiety of somebody turning up not quite knowing who's who. It's always good to maybe have a person you can just check something with.
Of course, yeah. Oh, yeah, they know. Like, every so often, if there's new faces been down, we will give a little, not a speech, but at the beginning, we will just give an understanding. No slide tackles. This is fun. We don't get on people's back. It's all about encouragement. But apart from that, everyone knows who you'll find as well. They don't maybe all come to us. They might, over the months, made a friend. We've seen so many friendships made. It's unbelievable.
And I think what you can see from this clip, so I don't know if you noticed there, but we showed you scoring that goal, Paul. I mean, there's not much credit for it. It was a tap-in. The work was done for you. I'm not quite sure who set you up.
That's all noticed, that, mate.
So I think, but what is great about that, and I think this is why we'll share this as our description, is you can see in a really nice way, it's all ages, it's all shapes and sizes, it's all skill levels. You know what I mean? I think that is, again, that bit of, you talk, Wayne, about having an anxiety about doing something new. And you might assume without seeing it, I'm going to go and they're all going to be miles better than me, or they can all run quicker than me and I'm going to embarrass myself. But I think having videos and clips like that says, actually, you can probably see yourself here running around. or you might be the guy who plays for 10 minutes and then goes and sits on the sidelines because they're done. But that's awesome because you're a guy who came down or a girl that came down, and that's what we want.
Yeah, I just, again, that them sessions alone, and what Paul was saying, no one's like the boss of it, but just again personally, and I know this is all three of us as well because of how we are. Do you know what I mean? I want to say this. Sometimes you're screaming out, going, "Why can't no one tell us something wrong with me?" You're not asking for help, but your friends, I can see quite clearly with you too, and I know you can with me. Why don't no one else? So if you've got people coming down roles, or not just it might be a participant who's got a friend with them. There's something wrong with that person. So at the end, there's, like I say, the Creative Football Hub, which again, go in there, that drew, or a little pull at the side so it's out of the way. How you doing? What's going on? In a certain way, and it's treating everyone the same, but everyone's individual. We go back to the beginning, Jamie, when we were saying, someone might speak different to me because of my language, the way I speak and everything like that. So it's like being a football coach, and some people need the arm around some people. You know what I mean? It's just different tactics, and I think that's the beauty of it all as well. Because that person who's running about, who's loud, he's quiet. There's something going on there because that ain't the norm. And as people, we're there taking part. The badges are not there. Well, we ain't got badges. But you know what I mean? For us, just there and stuff like that, you can really sort of more quicker than sat round the table, not knowing people.
Yeah.
It works. And we've seen it. And like I say, going back to that prevention, which again, cost, health, to whatever spectrum or whatever, how high it could go to, that can be nipped in the bud by just that little chat at the end. Do you know what I mean? And then arrange to meet up at a separate time out the way, whichever way suits them, really.
Good stuff. I mean, we've covered loads of good bits there. I can't even list them all. We're gonna take a little micro break in the middle of our podcast here to do our Pennine quickfire questions. This is the bit I know that you've been really looking forward to, where we quiz you on some really difficult stuff.
I'll be honest now, it's a nonsense. We've been talking about some really inspirational stuff now, and now it's 2 minutes of nonsense. But why not?
So, we're gonna ask you 9 questions, and the rules are easy. Just say the first thing that comes into your head. We're gonna start with Paul H and work our way around. We're gonna set a little timer going to make you feel under pressure. It's like a countdown clock, and then there's no pressure at all really, but it's funny, as soon as you switch the timer on, all of a sudden it feels like there's a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be helping mental well-being, and what we're doing is putting the strain on you guys.
Anxiety.
Yeah. Give me bedroom.
We have to cut this.
So here goes the timer, and then
One thing you didn't say though, if anybody says anything particularly hilarious or that needs some further, we're allowed to pause it and then explore a bit deeper.
Yeah. Sounds good. So you ready?
Do it. Come on.
Can you hear that timer? A little bit.
Yeah. The pressure.
Okay, Paul, so what is your nickname?
At the moment, Auntie.
Right, so pause immediately. Did you just say, well, you said it in a different accent to me, Auntie?
Auntie.
Auntie. Go on then, you have to explain that.
Well, it was just, I used to be a fanzine writer many years ago, and it was just a name that was given to me as a writing name, I guess. So it was always Paul Auntie. Okay.
I was looking for a bit more of a weird kind of something you've
Not
done.
really, no.
All right, carry on.
Here we go with the time again. Wayne, what is your favourite movie ever?
Favourite movie ever? Anything with Denzel Washington in.
Yeah, good choice. Paul, one thing that annoys you?
People being late.
You was late today.
But, yeah, he didn't say him being late annoys you.
Yeah, people. Yeah.
Okay, Paul H, one thing that excites you?
Oh, going to watch Northampton Town.
Hang on a minute.
Brothers!
Exciting.
So I'm going to jump in at this point and call that the end to the first part of this Creative Football podcast. We cut it off halfway through Pennine quickfire questions so that it ended with a bit of fun, and the podcast too can also start with a bit of fun. So go and seek out the second part of the podcast now to hear more from the Creative Football guys.